Hello, and welcome to the Magic Moments podcast with myself, Dan Harvey, and my wife, Kizzy Harvey. In these podcasts, we seek to discuss, debate, and learn about the things that truly matter. These conversations are meant for a mature audience, as is the language. If you have a delicate mentality or sensitive ears, you may be triggered. All views expressed here are our own opinions, even when quoting facts, and we do not expect you to take what is said here at face value. All information should be critically assessed and researched before coming to a final conclusion. Your personal intuition always takes primary importance. And finally, while we encourage debate and discussion in the truth discovery process, being disrespectful or being unreasonably disruptive will not be tolerated. Words are powerful, words can change your life, and once you see, you cannot unsee.
Hello.
Hello. What are you doing?
I don't know, love. I nearly ended the stream. I've got a cold.
Oh, right. And that makes you end streams. Hello, Kathy.
Hi. Good evening.
Hello, all the peoples. I'm going to call them Magic Moments Enjoyers. That's the new one.
What did you? A new one?
Magic. Well, there's Magic Momenters. I tried last week. I think it was.
Right.
Magic Momenteers was one.
Oh, that's better.
Momenteers. That's like Musketeers. So
yeah.
I didn't know anyone like that.
Magic Moment Enjoyers is a mouthful, isn't it?
Well, that's for this week anyway. If you can hear us, let us know you can hear us. And if you can see us, let us know you can see us. That always helps.
Christmas.
It is Christmas as represented by a lamp.
Oh, guys, I don't know if you can see. This is very, very sparkly. The glitter bit down here is full of glitter up here. Now,
Don't move it.
When Dan was ill, last year, he has this habit of fainting when he's poorly. So it's very
by habit. That's happened 3 times in my life, and I'm 42.
That's very disconcerting.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the right word?
I don't know because I'm not in your brain.
Well, no, but that
what
means...
What are you trying to say? It's upsetting?
Yeah.
Unnerving?
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, he fell, nearly died, because he literally was this close to the corner of the island, and he fell backwards. Like, he literally just hit the deck, like, bump, like that. And I was upstairs, and we were both so ill. And, I mean, if he'd have hit his head on the thing, he'd be not here. And then I'd be talking about grief on my own in a whole different way.
Yeah, you'd be talking about grief.
Grieving my husband. But anyway, what lightened the moment is I bent down to be like, Lovey, and I'm trying to dial 999 because we were so poorly and I didn't know what happened to him. And I got a bit closer to him thinking, oh my God, is he breathing? And on the way, he'd knocked this over, which I'd noticed, but all the glitter had fallen into his beard.
So I would have been very Christmassy if I was in A&E.
So you had such a Christmas beard, didn't you?
Yeah, they would have loved it at A&E, but I didn't go, so that was even better.
No, you told me not to ring them.
No, I said not to ring them because I'd only fainted, and I ate a banana, and I felt a lot better.
That's the trouble. You don't eat when you're poorly.
No, I didn't eat for 4 or 5 days.
Whereas nothing really stops me from eating.
No.
Only that one time with that, what's it called? That gastro I can't remember.
Yeah, that gastro thing.
Yeah. Anyway.
So today we're talking about grief. Hooray!
No, hold on a minute. Yeah, we are. But do you want to do the news?
Oh, right, yes. I didn't know you'd done any news.
I told you before we started. I said I've got a slide.
Okay, do the news.
Right.
What you told me about, apparently.
Ta-da! So today's news is number 1. We've put our Christmas tree up.
Hooray!
That's what we've done today. And number 2, I finally uploaded everything onto our YouTube barring last week's episode. It was supposed to be uploaded overnight, and I don't know what happened to it. However, what I wanted to say is if you're watching this live, if you're watching this on catch up, please, if you're on YouTube, we'd really appreciate a subscribe, purely because with YouTube we've got to hit certain numbers to be able to have certain functions. So even if you have no intention of watching us,
Subscribe anyway, just for fun.
Yeah,
because all it takes is 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's it. And yeah, and we only upload once a week, so you know.
You're not going to get spammed or anything.
No.
We're just literally putting a video out every week, once a week.
Like and subscribe. God, I feel like one of Hunter's.
One of Hunter's YouTubers. Yeah. Oh my God, like and subscribe.
So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So you just wanted to say that?
Yeah, well, I'm proud of myself.
Well, fair enough.
For doing that, and I thought it would be good to, just say it would be really good to have the people do the subscribing.
Now I know you really wanted to talk about wagons as well.
So what did we talk about? Well, last week's episode, which will be up on YouTube this week, was about programming, as in how the world around us programs our minds, isn't it?
Taking control of your own minds, yeah.
Yeah, and what impact that can have. It's very interesting, actually, wasn't it? Very interesting.
And that's only really like level 1 of talking about it, really.
And it was weird that it was interesting, because we've obviously talked about it all, but I still find it really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I was going to ask if people had any examples of them noticing, because I think once you know something, then you can start to notice it in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my first question. Pop it in the comments, even if you're catching up. And if you are on catch up, please do pop that in the comments, because it all helps. But you spotted an example, didn't you, that I didn't even notice?
Well, so you bought the wagon, right? So it's like a pull-along wagon that you put stuff in. So she doesn't like carrying anything more than a cup of tea is not what she wants to do. So she bought this wagon thing so she can go from the annex to the.
No, I didn't.
To the back door. Oh no, sorry, no.
No.
It was so you could take all your stuff from the car to events.
Yeah, and also because when I go to Creeley with Hunter and
you're gonna take the wagon.
Yeah, rather than carrying a backpack and breaking my back, I'm gonna drag that.
It's a holiday wagon as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, this wagon's just gonna basically carry all of it. It's a mule. It's a modern mule. Anyway.
I thought you said a meal. I was like, I can't eat it.
No, a mule as in an animal.
Donkey.
Yeah, but it sounded better. Modern mule.
Is that a northern thing, mule?
No.
Oh.
That's a whole world thing.
Well, no, I know about mules, but I would say donkey.
Okay. I apologize. I'll use donkey in future.
Go on.
Anyway, yeah, so you're gonna use that. Anyway, I noticed where you bought it from, and I looked on there, and the picture on there has got a dog in it inside the wagon that you pull, right? And the very first thing she did when she got it is she constructed it and put the dog in it and brought the dog down from the house to the annex. I said, look at this.
Peggy loved it.
Peggy loved that ride. Yeah, she did. But the reason that you did that was because you were programmed to do so. That's my countenance on that.
Yeah, and I think you could be right, that
you instructed to do so and you obeyed.
Yeah, is that image was in my subconscious. So the first thing
it was planted there and you did it. Because why would you just think, I just put the dog in here and wheel around? You only did it one time as well.
Yeah.
So it's like you had to get it out your system because it had been put there. You had to get it out your system and do it.
Yeah. Actually, it did feel like that.
Exercise it.
Yeah. It did feel like that.
Because otherwise you just put her in it each time, wouldn't you, if she was coming down? If that's her mode of transport. Oh, poor old Peggy don't want to walk down. But anyway. So that's just what I thought that was a good example. That was
last week, anyway, wasn't it?
Now today comes with a warning because we're talking about grief, and it's a very emotive subject for obvious reasons. Now there's a warning at the start of every show, anyway. But here's an additional warning. So here's a warning on the warning. The warning about today's podcast is myself and Kizzy has known each other for 20 years, and we've had thousands of conversations, and we know each other's limits, history, and pains. So whilst Kizzy may burst into tears, potentially, maybe not. She might do. Sometimes she cries, if a squirrel falls out of a tree. So maybe she might cry if we talk about her mum and dad being dead. Who knows? Anyway, this is not like I'm going to be talking to her about it. We're going to be talking to each other, and obviously you guys can give your examples and your explanations of what you think as well. So we're going to be talking about it amongst ourselves. So it can be an emotional subject. So it's just a warning for people out there who are sensitive to these sort of things.
yeah, please do feel free to join in the comments
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
well, because I think that there's not enough conversations that happen around grief, which is one of the reasons that we wanted to do it, and death
Yes.
in general.
It's like a
And
taboo subject. And,
mm,
let's start off. I don't know if this is starting off light or not. Um, Probably not light, but I don't think there is a light end of this subject, really. But some people are scared to talk about death, and some people certainly won't talk about death with like their children, for example. And everyone will have their opinion on this, but we thought, it with Hunter, we thought it's important that Hunter recognizes that death is a part of life, and so we didn't sort of make any stories up about, your mum's, gone on holiday and she won't never come back or anything. We didn't say anything weird. You know what I mean? We just said, look, Nanny Jack is what we call an energy person, that she's no longer here, and we didn't skirt around the fact that she was dead. We used
well,
the
we
word
took it.
death. We said dead, and we said that she's, depending on your belief, she could be in the sky, she could be in heaven. It depends on your beliefs, doesn't it? Like, we don't really want to force anything on him, but we want him to be open to all suggestions, if you like, and come to his own
We've
conclusion.
just said edgy person, but today he told us that Nanny Jack's an angel, didn't he?
He did,
While
yeah,
we were eating
because
our dinner.
and we were putting the decorations up, and one of the decorations is Nanny Jack's face in a bauble, isn't it? And the first thing he said was Nanny Jack, and he was very precious about it. Carried it very carefully to the tree.
He was.
So, and we find he's quite good with it all, really. And I think, I don't know, I would just hate to like tell him stories about that kind of thing and skirt around it, because we're not doing him any favors. Because I always feel like the younger you are, the more resilient you are, and the easy and better adaptable you are to situations. And when you're trying to, I don't like this phrase, but I'm going to use it because I can't think of anything else. When you're developing a child, like when you're trying to sort of give the child as much tools as possible, then you have to expose them to all the different aspects of life. You can't hide any part of life away, because otherwise, if they're sheltered from, for example, death, then at some point they're going to encounter that, and you've not prepared them for it or modeled any kind of behavior around death. So we try to talk to him about it, and we're always trying to not sort of force him to talk about it, but say to him, if you want to talk about this, you can talk about it, and it's fine. It's not a taboo subject. And so we don't want it to be a taboo subject, because we're doing this podcast and we want to be open and to all subjects of mind based importance.
Hunter went to Mum's funeral at 4, and we met some resistance about that.
Yeah, we did.
A lot of people felt that it was inappropriate. I think is the best thing we did. I think funerals are very important, and he doesn't particularly remember it, does he? But
no, not at all. But it is very important. The reason that we have funerals, the ritual of the funeral, is it puts a full stop on that chapter. It puts an end on that situation. So with your mum, she had her life. You was shared part of that life with her. Her life came to an end, and it came to an end with the funeral, because it kind of feels like they're not truly dead until you've been to the funeral. Like, you need that ritual of doing the goodbye, of saying the things you want to say, of saying your bit, in sort of thinking about their life. You need that ritual to put it to conclusion. And I think Hunter's no different. He's a human being.
I think you need multiple rituals. So, like, Mum's funeral was one of them. She has a tree. And if it wasn't a tree, it would have been, nowadays with cremation, like, I needed a place to honor, I guess, her.
Well, and you go and talk, don't you? Then sometimes.
Yeah. And Christmas, I go to church. And I do a donation. So mums and dad have got their name on a lantern. And I'm not religious, particularly. Well, it depends, doesn't it? I'm not traditionally, necessarily, God in the sky. But and I think those rituals are important to grieving.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes people can feel daft for the things that they do. It's like Mum's bauble on the tree. Like, it reminds me, if you watch The Royal Family of Nana, which is it's like, it's just funny, like the Royal Family, but
The TV show, The Royal Family.
And yeah, and the bauble is a funny part of it, but and a sad part of it. But yeah, but it's a nice ritual, and the way Hunter carried it today, and like I make sure that she can see. It's like all those little things.
Yeah, like you put her on the front of the tree in the middle so she can see everything.
Yeah.
Even though it's a bauble, but
when my nan and granddad died, so my nan died 2 weeks before Dan proposed to me. And we got married a year and a bit later, didn't we? My nan died in the December, and then my granddad was diagnosed with cancer in the March, and he was given a year to live. And we'd planned our wedding for the June. I was very, very, very close to my grandparents, which we'll probably touch on if we touch upon my relationship with my parents. But anyway, so Pamp, that's what I called him, my granddad. His mission was to get to our wedding. And it's one of the last things he said to me. He said, Poppy, because that's what Nan, granddad, and my mum called me. He said, Poppy, he said, I tried. As in, I tried to make it. And so at our wedding, we did a raffle, didn't we? We did a raffle. We did a name the dance. We had a table set up for them, and we raised money for Marie Curie, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I think that I think it's because we needed to do something like that, especially me, not so much Dan, but that was my way of honouring it and helping me grieve. And I see people do stuff like Western Hospice Care, who didn't have that much involvement with Mum at all, actually, but I honour the stuff that they do because it makes me feel, I don't know, that bit closer.
Is it like a form of almost like gratitude, like expressing gratitude? Like rather than just saying words, you're doing something.
I do apologise, I've got a cold.
Requires, I guess, a sacrifice, in this case money, or time.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, well, yes and yeah, but I think it's deeper than that. I don't know if any of you have done anything symbolic. We'll read the comments in a second because I can see things coming through. I think that because we're not very good at talking about grief in this country, in the Western world, because we're not very good at expressing our emotions, doing things like that is, that's a way of not recognize, like acknowledging my grief for my mum. So when I do something like that,
yeah.
So when I go see her tree, so the other day in the range, I saw this little angel thing that I could put down the bottom of her tree. Now, all those things are silly in a way, like sort of from a logical standpoint.
Yeah.
But from an emotional standpoint, I think those are the things that help, because otherwise, if you don't do those things, where are you expressing grief?
Where's the outlet?
And how are you expressing it?
Yeah, because you've got to have an outlet for grief somehow. So where's the outlet if you're not doing those kind of things, whether they're tokens or whatever they are?
Yeah.
Like it's obviously beneficial for human psyche to do that. Otherwise, I think you become quite mentally ill if you didn't express.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought is always interesting, if you notice, I don't know if anyone's ever noticed, but whenever someone dies tragically, and you often hear this when it's a big thing and it's in the news, is they always set up a foundation, don't they? Like the grieving parents or whoever's the grieving people to do with the person who's died. They always set up some kind of foundation in their name.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really common thing. And it must be like a requirement or need to grieve, to the outlet of doing it.
Yeah, I think it's a way to channel the grief in something that, and actually
feels positive.
Yeah, look, Kathy's put the word productive.
Mm.
And that's the thing. So Hannah said, I want to teach my child that life isn't all wonderful, especially around death, but never know what's right and wrong to say or do.
I mean, I don't know is there a right or wrong? I mean, can it also come down to the individual child's personality? Like certain child types might be, it might be said in one way or it might be said in another way. I don't, as a general rule, I don't like the idea of just outright lying about death at all. But there are ways of putting it that can be different for each child, ways of explanation that would be different for each child. So I don't think it's a right or wrong thing. I just think it's, you've got to take each individual situation on its individual merits, if you like.
Yeah.
But I don't agree with the actual concept of any kind of lying about it. It's just
Well,
my
and not
opinion.
just even that. Like, I love what Hannah said, where she said, I want to teach my child that life isn't all wonderful.
Yes.
Like, we will come on to parenting and stuff like that. That's another podcast. But what I see nowadays is so many parents trying to protect their children and hide them from stuff and keep them innocent, and I understand all of that. And I don't know if it's because Hunter's background, where he had no choice and he had to,
He came from a trauma background.
he come from a trauma background. He had to be resilient. It I don't know if that is why, but I think that it does more harm than good. I don't mean like you're just gonna, like, hand a gun to a child and like, I don't mean that.
It's not like throwing him in the deep end, but it's
No.
more about acknowledging there is a deep end and you're one day going to have to swim there, so we need to prepare you for the deep end. I think it's more like that.
Yeah, like how can a child develop coping strategies if they never have to cope?
Yeah.
So, we have situations where Hunter, like any parent, might be upset about something because he's not allowed. A really good example, yesterday we went to Puxton and there was a mix up and we weren't allowed in, right? And
it was a bookable event.
Yeah, and I hadn't booked. And, he was really excited. It was Christmas lights on, you could go in the soft play, and we weren't allowed in. And do you know, he didn't cry. He had a sad face. He didn't have a tantrum. But that's because times before we have had that. And rather than protect him from it and try and solve it for him, we
fix it so he's not upset.
We just let him be upset, don't we?
Just be upset. Stop trying to prevent emotions. Like, how can you have healthy emotions, or how can you develop a healthy mind if you're never allowed to feel the things that happen in life? You're just not allowed to feel them. Any negative things, oh no, you're not allowed to feel it because you're a child. That is the perfect time for them to feel it, because they're children and they can learn and develop. They're learning machines. So you have to let them experience the things so they can learn from them. If you just don't do that for whatever reason, whatever your reasoning is, in my opinion, you're setting them up so that in later life they're more fragile people. They haven't had to cope with enough things to give them a sort of rounded edge. And so the moment something sort of happens that they now got to deal with themselves because you're not around or whatever, then they're brittle and they snap and they break. That's my opinion.
Well,
that's how I feel about it.
And I think the people, that do it, it's not malicious, it's love. They just want to protect. Yeah. And I understand that.
It's pure love, because you're actually there to coach them through it.
Yeah.
Like, you're there to help them process it, give them advice and support to this is how a good way to think about this is this way, or maybe if you think of it from their point of view, they've had some kind of falling out or a fight with someone or whatever. There's all different ways of doing it, but just avoiding it or preventing it or suppressing negative emotion cannot be healthy. And this country in particular, the UK, is quite famously repressed emotionally, right? I mean, that's the famous stereotype of UK people, British people.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, should we get off of parenting?
Oh yeah, because we're on a different subject. But what is if someone close to us passes away, we always try and take the children with us, say to show them what happens after someone dies. Absolutely, they've got to see the process. Yeah. It's like, many children have animals, and the especially like a hamster or something. Obviously, a hamster don't last very long, does it? Like 2 years or whatever. So their first experience with death is the death of the animal. I think what I hear now on the sort of grapevine, as it were, what parents do now is they just say, "Oh, he escaped" or something, rather than just say he's dead.
They buy another hamster.
Or they buy another hamster and anyway, that's Dave the hamster.
We're back on parents.
Yeah, but we're talking about grief.
I know, but
the death of the hamster.
I know, but I was just moving you away from parenting.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Okay.
Kelly was saying she got a memory leaf for her dad at the hospice.
Right, as
And
a
she
token.
makes monthly donations because it makes her feel like she's still doing something.
Yeah, so that's like a healthy expression of grief, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like the obviously the most obvious negative expressions of grief would be grief avoidance, whereby you avoid it through drinking, drugs, or some other means of avoidance of grief, rather than like you're too you don't want to go through the process because acceptance of the death. And we're talking a lot about death. There are different types of grief. You know, you can grieve about um, you're in love with someone, they don't love you, and they leave you. You're grieving about a relationship in that case. It's grief of loss of a person or a place. You can even grieve. Some people love their job and they work in their job and they work long after their retirement date, and they quit their job or retire, and then they quickly die because their whole life was work, and when they're not in work they become depressed because they love their jobs. And I think that's a form of grief. There's quite a few different forms of grief, but it's all to do with loss, it seems.
Kathy said, I can't grieve. I'm frightened I'd never stop crying. I think if anyone has felt the same, who's gone through grief, I think that's really, really common. I felt exactly the same. I had that real same process, that real same thought. I built it into a fear.
A fear to go through what you know you've got to go
Because
through.
it hurt, yeah, like it was. And so I went for healing, didn't I? So it was so bad that I went to somebody who did reflexology for me, and she's the one who helped my periods come back, and I knew that she also did healing. It's called something else, something healing it is. So when I led on that table, that was one of the things that I said. She could feel it all inside of my body, and she was like, why are you not letting this go? And I was like, because if I let it go, I won't stop. And she's like, and she just made me think of it logically. Like, obviously, logically, that's not actually going to happen. Like, it's physically impossible. Like, because one day I'll fall asleep, or I'll need something to eat, or I need a wee. Like, so it's not that. It's not that I'm not going to stop crying. It's that I didn't want to experience that pain.
Is it also the fear of letting go of the person? Like, if you go through the grieving process, then that is you sort of coming out the other end, and therefore you've sort of let that person go in a way.
I don't know. I can't say consciously that was ever a thing. I find it weirdly going into the first New Year and we didn't ever celebrate New Year, and
No.
New Year wasn't a thing. Going into a different year, that I found that like really, really difficult. That felt like I was leaving her behind. I wanted to stay in the year that she died.
Right. Okay.
I didn't want to move into a year without her, a year that she hadn't experienced.
Yeah, because then it's like you've left her behind.
Yeah. So, and I didn't expect that. I didn't expect it at all. That absolutely knocked me sideways, because and that's the thing I think with grief is I thought I knew grief. I thought that I knew when I would feel sad, birthdays, blah, 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 and it's not actually. So for me, and it's different for everybody, but the anticipation of a birthday and the anticipation is what of Mother's Day has been harder than the actual day. And then, New Year's Eve, the first New Year.
Yeah, like for me personally, I've never understood really like dates when people get upset about a certain date, or it was a birthday, or I don't know, like whatever ceremonial date. I don't understand dates personally. That doesn't affect me. So for me, the most thing about grief really is about that person can't experience anything that you're going to experience, so they don't get to see what's happening in the current day. Like, well, depends on your beliefs, and we're going to talk about at the end. We're going to talk about beliefs of life after death, or if you believe that or not. So we're going to go into like the deeper stuff around that kind of thing, because that can influence how you grieve, right? Because I think it's very different if you don't believe in anything, how you grieve, to versus if what you do believe in after death, if you do believe in that. But for me, it's kind of like the way that sums it up is this thing I saw online. It was like a little video of
and maybe it's because I'm a train driver that this one hit home, but like these people get on the train, and so your mum and dad's on the train, right? And you get on the train, and you're a kid, and then you get older and older as you go on this train journey. And there's all these other people that you don't know on the train. Some of them are your family and friends, and people are getting on and off at the different stops. And then eventually, your mum and dad are really old, and they get off at their stops, and you carry on without them. And it's the first time that you've carried on that journey without them to share the journey with you. And then your child jumps on the train, or maybe your child's already jumped on the train, and then you're getting older, and one day it's your turn to get off the train and leave everyone else behind, and they're going on the journey. And that hit home for me, like, because it's more about the person, that disconnect of like, do they know what's happening now? Do they get updated? Do they know what's like, are they experiencing what you're experiencing or not? Or are they always there, or are they never there? Like that kind of thing for me. It's like the loss in that way.
Yeah, and that like they're not getting back on the train.
Yeah.
Like the finality of it,
Yeah.
I think.
Yes. Kind of brutal.
Yeah. And I think I the other thing that I find really difficult is that it there's two things that came into my like mum's death like nearly killed me. Like I got poorly, didn't I, with it, you know,
Yes.
like with the I think it wasn't just her death and just grief. I think because there was trauma involved, but I don't know because I can't separate the two. So I don't know what is just trauma and I don't know what is grief.
Without going into the detail, she had a traumatic death. It wasn't a peaceful
No.
end. So there was like a very traumatic end that was a shocking end, wasn't it?
Yeah,
for you?
yeah. And yeah, and I just like I found it so difficult. Sorry. I found it so difficult that then all I could think about is all my friends, all the people that I love and care about are going to go through this too. And I didn't know what to do with all that pain for them. Like I didn't, and I still don't. And this is the reason why I come on and talk about it. Because the only thing I can think I can do is to keep talking about it and be very open about it and share about it so that so that they feel like I can be there for them, so that they feel like they can express themselves in whatever way, so that they can understand perhaps what's normal, you know, like all of that. Because yeah, like that was the first thing, is when I went through that pain, I just thought I can't bear that anyone else is going to go through this pain. And then the second thing is I just can't bear that Hunter will go through that one day.
Everyone has to go through it.
I
There's no
know.
avoidance. Like everyone, I mean, no one just lives by themselves in the woods. So everyone's going to go through it.
I know. So
multiple times.
this is the thing about grief. It's not linear. It's not, you know, it wasn't just about mum, you know, it was what's coming in the future. Like, and you know, you're obviously not allowed to die. Like I need to die first because I'm not grieving you. Like I can't do it. Like, cause you know, you have all those thoughts, all those feelings. Yeah. And yeah, and then I think of Hunter having to cope. Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately for Hunter, he's already lost his birth father as well at a young age. Obviously, that will happen for him very young. So, you know, if he was a bit older, he'd be more aware. But nevertheless, obviously, it's still an impact that he's lost so many. You know, he's lost as far as he was concerned, 2 grandparents, a parent, and a dog in a couple of years, basically.
Yeah.
So it's quite a lot. So really, I'm not sure it was possible to shelter him from it, to be honest. But I mean, yeah, all these animals and people keep going missing. He's like, where are they? Oh, they're at Butlins. They will be back.
So he when he moved away from his teacher at school, we had some problems, didn't we? And we suddenly realised it was because he's lost so much, so many people in his life. So he was going to the support thing there. And I don't know if he still goes actually. Maybe not. He's quite well adjusted now.
Yeah, well, he said that she just comes around for a chat every now and again, but
He said something about drawing the other day. He does drawing.
yeah, I think one of the therapy type things they use is drawing to try and get them to draw, because then they can see from the drawing if there's anything issues. Have you ever seen those films where someone draws like the devil or something, and then it's like that?
Two positives. I mean, there's more positives, but two that just flew into my mind is that one, because so if it wasn't for Hunter, I don't think I'd be here. I love you dearly, and I would hate to let you down, and I would hate to hurt you, but it hurt me so badly and I was so poorly that I don't know that I'd have made it. Whereas Hunter made me get up every day and take him to school, for starters.
You have to just get on with it with him.
As one day I didn't do it. One day out of like a whole 18 months that I couldn't do it. But other than that, I did it every single day. And I think that helped really. And the second thing is I couldn't put him through the grief, like losing. And so what it actually did is it made me determined to live. So although it was hard, like, you know, I've lost some weight, haven't I, recently? And like some of that is because like I'm determined to live as long as I can for Hunter and as healthy as I can, so that he doesn't, you know, he can cope with this later on in life when he's got a wife to support him.
He's got his own family,
or husband, or, you know, whatever
he's up to.
Yeah, you know, so that's one of the positives, I guess you could say, from it. And the second one is that I love everything about aging, and the moments that I don't. So like I've got grey hair right here. I've been grey since I was like 20 something. And today when I was fiddling about, like setting this up, I kept thinking I had a bald patch, but it's not. It's because my hair is dark and then the grey's light. And there was like this momentary hatred of the grey. And then I skip back, and then I'm so grateful for the grey, because my mum was only 62 when she died, and actually my granddad was not very old. He was the same, wasn't he?
He's about the same, yeah.
And we've known, I mean, you know, Hunter's father was 19. You know, and other people we know that have died young, isn't it? And so we've learned very fast that the future isn't promised at all.
No.
And so every grey hair I get, every wrinkle that I get, you know, I'm grateful for, because it's a sign that I'm still here. And I know people that won't ever get to grow old. And so I embrace it. So, you know, that's a couple of things that...
Well, this time last year, someone committed suicide in front of my train, as in I ran them over. They ran in front of my train. I can't go into any details for obvious reasons other than that. But that is someone who I found out was 23 or 24, whatever it was.
Yeah.
23, 24-year-old man who'd had enough for whatever reason, and thought, I'll go out and stand in front of a train. Now, if you've ever stood anywhere close to a train traveling at speed, you have a natural fear, like I got to get away from this huge, massive 400-ton machine that's 125 mile an hour hurtling towards my face. So your natural thing is to get away from it. And he was so calm and so relaxed. He walked in front of it, and he looked at me in the eyes, and he walked in front of it casually, just like he's walking to the shop, and he just waited a couple of... It felt like 3 or 4 seconds. It was probably not even that. And he just waited in the middle, and I'm in emergency brake, no chance of stopping, and absolutely flattened him, and that's that. So he was ready to go, and I think if you've got to that stage, obviously that's pretty severe. I don't know what you'd say, depression or mental illness or whatever. Something's happened, and so you got to count each day as a blessing, really.
Well, yeah, we know people. We've lost people to cancer young, haven't we? You know, and they didn't want to go. Years ago, I lost a friend, Kelly, and she left behind her children. Yeah, and that's always stuck with me. Like on bad days, I used to think Kelly would do anything to be here, and there's me moaning about a traffic jam, things like that.
I think a common thing that happens when, in particular, obviously we're focused on the most common grief thing where someone dies, but like when you're in that start of grief, I think a lot of people want to express to you condolence, like, I'm really sorry that happened, but they say certain things that are like, if ever you've been in grief and then someone says these certain things, or you get over it in time and that kind of thing, you understand where they're coming from intellectually, but in that moment it can be like, I don't know about you, but infuriating.
Okay, well, there's two things that made me really, really angry when Mum died, of which I have spoken about before. And if the two people that this involves watches this, then it's nothing personal.
It could have been anyone that said it.
It could have been anyone, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's just, it literally is an experience that I had. And, there's the 7 stages of grief, of which number 3 is anger, and so potentially it can be involved in that maybe. So number 1, super well-meaning, Kristen Jewell sent me a book about grief. And I had loads of wonderful gifts, a blanket with Mum on, like candles, things like that. And I opened this book and I literally wanted to throw it across the room, because I was like, and I don't know if it's also because I'm a lover of books, so it's my comfort, it's my joy. And so seeing a book about someone dying, like, I was like, how's that going to help me? Like, how can I read a book? Like, I'm in so much pain about my mum. Now, let me tell you, I've bought that book for multiple people that have lost people. I must have bought about 6 copies, because it did help. One day I picked it up and I started to read it, and I wish I'd picked it up sooner. If you want the name of the book, just put book in the comments. I meant to find it, but I have a lot of book.
You have a lot of books as well, don't you?
A lot of bookcases. Yeah, I wanted to bring it and show you it. And so, yeah, but my initial reaction was anger. Like, a book can't help me. Like, how dare you send me a book? Like, this isn't going to help. Obviously, her intention, and she had people that had said it had helped. And exactly the same, like, it did, and it does help. So, yeah, there was that one. And then there was another woman who messaged me, and we were chatting, and I'd said something about Mum dying so young, and I don't know, because I haven't got the experience where she died young, and I haven't got the experience when she died old. But I have a feeling, and this is what this woman corrected me on. I have a feeling that if my mum was 90 and had a good innings, as she would say, that I would find that easier to accept. That there wouldn't be,
because she'd had her time.
Yeah, there wouldn't be so I'm grieving, and there's all the stuff that you're grieving, but also I felt robbed, like,
Of time.
Robbed, yeah. And also, I never thought I'd be a mum without a mum, and that is something that I found really, really hard, is being a mum without having a mum. And so, like, that's been, and I'm so grateful for the friends that I've got and the friends that I've made, because I was so lonely for a while doing motherhood on my own. It felt like, but anyway.
Well, you've always been really close to your mum, haven't you?
Yeah,
like since you've been
ridiculously close. Yeah, I mean, we lived together, didn't we, for years?
Yeah, and we're in the annex. Where we're recording this right now, I'm streaming this. We're in the annex, which is where she was going to live, if she was going to live. But we've obviously turned it into a studio because she's not around. There's no one here, because the whole plan of this moving to this location was for them, and then they swiftly died.
We used to share everything, so we would plan the week shopping, and she would cook certain days, I would cook other days.
Yeah,
she would do the washing. Now, if you watch Love Languages, that podcast, you can find that over on our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. My love language is acts of service, and my mum, absolutely, that was her love language, and so we spoke each other's love language, and so there was that, as also was ripped away from me.
She was a good support for you.
Yeah, she was a good support. Anyway, so I was chatting to this woman, and she said to me, her mum died when she was in her 90s, and I had said something around that, like I don't think I called her lucky. I might have. And she said to me, she said, it wouldn't have mattered if I'd have had my mum for 100 years. It would never be enough. It would never be enough years. And I remember being so angry, just thinking like, F you, like try having your mum only for 62 years, And I know that actually there's some people that's mums died when they were children,
Yeah.
and I can't even contemplate what that must be like, So I'm grateful that I had her for 62 years, or no, not 62, because I'm not 62. However old I was when she
Yeah.
died, 36. But I'm like, this woman that was chatting to me, I think she was in her 60s. And I'm like, you're in your 60s. I'm in my 30s. Like, you're lucky. And I was just angry. But actually, there was a point where I realized that she was right, I think. Like, I think there is still an element where you feel robbed. But I do realize now
You're
that,
always going to be upset.
yeah,
Very upset no matter what.
yeah,
There's no avoiding that,
no,
irrelevant of how long you have with her.
no.
The only thing it might have taken away is the feeling of injustice that you feel because she was young.
Yeah, I don't
62
think
is
it
quite
would have
young.
taken away that grief, the missing, I don't know. Like, I just think there is something with her. Like, my nan, like, I was so close to my nan, wasn't I?
Mm.
She really was like a mum to me. My relationship with my mum wasn't great when I was younger. So I thought I'd be ready for my mum's death, but it hits different. And when I went for the healing, she said to me, like, where do you feel stuff? And I'm like, in my tummy. And I'm pointing here, and she's like, your tummy's up here, like your stomach's here. And she said, you're pointing to your belly button. She's like, that's umbilical cord,
Mm.
And it made me think, like, and I used to get pain in my belly button, like right around my belly button, and just just a bad feeling in this area. And she sort of pointed out that was umbilical cord.
Mm.
So yeah,
Interesting.
it makes me worry about when your mum dies. I know you're not as close as like me and my mum, but like I worry about anyone's mum dying, because I wonder. Yeah.
Well, no one knows how they're going to be until it happens to
No.
them. So
No.
I'm not going to sort of pre-grieve my mum dying or anyone else dying. They die when they die, and then I grieve at the time.
I think that's hard when you do have to pre-grieve. Like, I had to pre-grieve my dad. I went to counselling when I was 16 years old, because my dad had his first stroke then, I think. And he changed, his personality changed, and I lost my dad. And so I went to counselling because I realised I was angry, and I was and I was struggling. So I self-referred myself in college. And then he continued to decline, didn't he? And
Well, he had like 8 or 9 strokes or something ridiculous, didn't he?
yeah, and so I had to grieve him while he was alive, in a way, and
Yeah.
that's a whole nother thing.
Well, that's a whole other podcast with your dad. I think your dad's like 7 podcasts, but we were not going to do 7. No, but yeah, it's a big subject.
Talking about 7, do you know what I thought? So so the other thing I found when Mum died, and because I know you were gonna say about life after death and spiritualism and stuff. So when Mum died, suddenly all my beliefs in the afterlife, what I believe, what I've experienced, I have seen many a ghost or spirit, haven't I, love? And
You've seen a lot of stuff.
I've seen a lot of stuff, and suddenly I was like, no, it doesn't exist.
A lot of unexplainable things.
I was frightened to death that it didn't exist, and that, like, I would see this butterfly like flew into our house, and it had like 2 hearts on it and stuff, and I would be like, I would want to think that it was a sign, and then my brain would go, no, it isn't. So the signs that I was getting, I was dismissing, which I found really difficult. And then I went to a spiritualist night, and then the guy came to me and said, oh, you know anyone called Jackie? And like it was just so accurate that then I think that was the tipping point for me. But up until that point, all the signs, the feathers, the robins, just the things like the songs. Remember when we were on holiday and Roy Orbison came on because I
It
was
was-
crying.
Well, what was so weird about that is we were talking about your mum, I think your dad as well.
Yeah.
And it's like a big soft play, right? So they've got all this loud music on, which is all modern loud music. All of a sudden, Roy Orbison comes on,
Which is Mum's favourite.
which is your mum's favourite, and she used to sing Roy Orbison all the time and have a Roy Orbison CD on.
Yeah. And just before she
I've
died,
still got PTSD from all that,
I took her to a Roy Orbison tribute act.
and she loved it.
Yeah, we had such a good time.
Anyway, that came on at the exact time we were talking about it, and it was the last. I think it was like the last song.
It was the
before
last
closing.
song. So then it literally the song shut off and the place went silent, apart from screaming kids. But
Yeah. But before
Yeah.
that, it was like all weird, like electro music and techno and whatever. It was like loud banging,
kiddie,
like
or not
kiddie,
kiddie, like
teenagey
modern
music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden, Roy Orbison, whatever. I can't remember what song it was, but it was
Oh, I can.
some, anyone
Not
knows Roy Orbison.
Pretty Woman. The other one it is. Now, so Hannah has had it where she's been really struggling, and with when she was going through her divorce and stuff, and Roy Orbison's come on. And we were talking about my mum in a pub, and Roy Orbison come on, funny enough. And then Hannah, when she was moving, she was struggling again. And my mum's thingy fell out, order of service thing. Is that what it's called?
Well, and your mum had a big influence on Hannah, like discussions around
Oh yeah, she's
living
the
your
reason.
life. That's
Yeah.
the reason why she probably had a divorce in a way.
Well, Hannah went for a reading, and my mum stood in the corner of the room apparently. So the guy told her.
Like a bouncer.
What, like a nosy?
Right, just like a gay
But first of all, when those things were happening, I didn't take comfort from it. My brain kept rejecting it over and over, that's weird, isn't it? And I don't still understand that.
Well, I think it's because you don't really want to accept that she's dead, and you're not ready to accept she's dead yet. You're still in a bit of shock phase of that she's actually gone. So if you accept that she's in the room, you're accepting that she's dead, aren't you? You're saying,
but normally
you're allowing it to be.
Yeah.
Whereas if you keep denying it, in a way, like if you keep denying, oh, I don't want to hear about that, she wasn't in the room, or I'm not accepting she was in the room.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that obviously logically that she is dead, but you can play the game of protecting yourself at your core, that you can pretend that she's not really dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It puts a barrier there.
I just thought I'd find comfort in those things, like the signs, but I just dismissed them so much initially. But I have to tell you, so I'm setting this podcast up, aren't I, tonight? And so I'm typing it out, aren't I? So this happens to be episode 007.
Yeah, James Bond episode.
James Bond, which is Mum's one of her favourite things.
Film, yeah.
Mum and Dad are James Bond fanatics. And obviously we've done it on the day we put our Christmas tree up.
Oh yeah, your mum's favourite.
And none of that was planned.
No.
We said grief randomly last week, didn't we? Not thinking that it was going to be number 7, which also was my nan's favourite number.
Well, originally this was actually going to be podcast number 3, actually. But
Yeah.
then I thought it was a bit early to talk about grief.
And my nan, so number 7, I've got to tell you about my nan and number 7. So my number 7 was my nan's favourite number by far. She's very, very attached to the number 7. And so, 007, James Bond, Christmas Day. We didn't know we were going to put the tree up today.
No.
When we planned this, and we didn't even know today.
No.
It was kind of actually, let's do it. So I don't know. I feel like that's a sign. When I joined Unique, I had to take a leap of faith to leave my previous company. And when you sign up, you get given a presenter number for the entire company, but you also get given a number for what you are in your country. So I had an email through welcoming me and saying I was presenter number 7. And I was like, oh my God, I was so nervous, and I felt like my nan had shown me, it's okay, Poppy, it's you're good, you're making the right decision. Then I went into the Facebook group, and the owner of the company was asking what numbers we all got. And so we were posting what numbers we had. So I put number 7, and another girl was like, no, I'm number 7. And I'm like, so I go and get my screenshot, and I'm like, no, I'm number 7. Like, don't take this away from me. So she goes and gets her screenshot, and she's number 7. And actually, when you look at the timestamp, she is seconds before me. So she was truly number 7.
But you got the email.
But I also was number 7.
So it glitched.
Yeah, and because the next one was an 8. That it's not like it missed 8.
So you're both 7, yeah.
We're both 7, but she was really 7. It's like my nan forced me into 7. Like she's
Which is
like,
what your nan would do.
yeah, she's like, no, Poppy's having 7. Like she's got to know that it's okay.
But she wasn't great on electronics, so she's a bit slow.
So yeah, it was just, I don't know.
Hi Emma, by the way.
Hi yeah, just a strange thing with that, and it made me think of something else, but I've forgotten it now.
Okay. Well, I was going to say something and I totally forgot what it was.
I know, that's what I mean.
Because I was talking about that then. Well, do you need time to recover?
No, I'm so snotty. I do apologise. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. What I would say is, you know, like if you can, if you've got a safe person to talk to, and you know, Dan or I, you can talk to too. And the other thing one of the gifts I got given was a book that was a journal that that said like something like Mum, I've got so much to tell you, love, Poppy. So it encouraged me to write her letters, and you know, I feel like every week I mention journaling, but it's very important. It's very helpful.
There's different personality types out there. For some of you, I would say as a general concept, talking about grief is probably a good idea as a general concept, but there are some people who just have to, and I'm one of these people, I'm going to say, I have to process everything myself in my own head, and I have to come to my own conclusions and feelings before I can talk about it. Then I'm happy to talk about it, but until I'm come to a place of, right, this is what I think about something, I can't talk about it. And so for me, when it comes to grief, in the time that it happens, I'm not going to talk about it with anyone, unless I'm like with you. I might work things through because it's you, but with anyone else, I would never talk about it. I can't think of anyone on the planet I would sort of discuss that kind of thing with, because that's just I'm not you're a very open person, and I'm quite a private person, even though I'm on this podcast and this doesn't seem like a private thing. That's basically because Kizzy's can opened my personality, so I've got no choice but to be open.
Image of me.
Yeah.
No, because I'll break the can opener.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's different people. Like some people are really good going to counselling, but other people not so much. As long as you find an outlet and a healthy way of expressing it, it doesn't matter what that is. As long as you can find a healthy way of doing that, whether it's talking, writing, whether it's going to a tree to talk to the tree, as in, you know, in your case of your mother, where she's got her own tree and all that. You set up a shrine. That's a common one, because obviously you can go talk to that person, and that you imagine that person will be there because that's their shrine, isn't it? That's their sort of new physical incantation on this planet, is that place, isn't it? Like that's where they exist now as a physical being.
Well, I got given that lovely lamp, didn't I? That's got words on it, and then the 3 other sides are pictures of my mum, isn't it? And me, and it's see-through, and it sits on our windowsill, doesn't it? So every now and again I say morning, Mum, when I walk past it. However, it would appear like Mum liked that too much, because we had a lot of spiritual activity, didn't we?
On that staircase.
On that staircase.
So
she's broke all our lights, hasn't she?
It's like she just hangs around on the stairs, because we've got sensor lights. So as you
had sensor lights.
As you walk by, they come on, but they were coming on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off, and nothing's there. But it wasn't like the. So sometimes, some nights, nothing. They wouldn't come on and off at all. other night, on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. And they do the sequence, light, 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 as you're going up the stairs. So you get the hallway, light, 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 and you can go, well, with 2 hallways, top and bottom. You can go 1 hallway up the stairs, and then the lights are following as though someone's walking there, but no one is walking there unless it's your mother. But hanging around on that step in particular is where the most light came on and off, on and off, on and off, and they've all gone now because of them frequently going on and off.
The only one that hasn't gone, so any that are on that staircase by there are gone. The only one that hasn't sensor light is the bathroom, because she doesn't like hanging out in the toilet, apparently.
No, which is weird, because in life she did. She was always in there.
So yeah, it's strange. And I know what I was going to say when I was talking about my nan, dreams. So I believe that when our loved ones are in our dreams, that when they've passed away, that often that is a form of communication. And it's because I'll never forget with my nan, I had this dream where she was in her garden doing her thing, and she was healthy and she was well, and it was like a period of time after she had died, and I was watching her from my bedroom window, your old office window, but that was my bedroom. And I just felt all this love and all this peace and happiness watching her, like, just be okay. And then it switched, and she suddenly was dancing, which she loved to do, twirling, showing me that she could dance and twirl, and then she waved at me and then left.
Okay.
And then my mum and dad, like, I've had so many dreams with them in, and my Pab and Nan, actually, like, recently, but that's faded. Like, that is faded. And I think some of it's your brain processing, but I think sometimes they push their way into your dreams. And if you can, you, like, try and listen, or
I think if you're sensitive to it, I think everyone's got the capability, but I think if you're particularly sensitive to it and they're around you, then they get into your subconscious. Like your subconscious mind is like saying, but not your conscious mind is saying, oh, my mum's around, my mum's around, my mum's around. And then you have a dream.
Well, yeah, and just like some of the dreams that I had was like, no one could see my mum but me, and like, so we would be, maybe we'd do this podcast, right, and me and you would be here, and we might, and then she would come and sit by me. Well, this wasn't the situation, it was a different situation, but she would come and sit by me, and I'd be like, Mum, and I'd know she was dead, and I'd be like, oh my God, and she'd be like, yeah, Poppy, and then we'd have a chat and we'd have a hug and everything, and then she'd go. And you didn't see her if you were in my dream. Like, no one else saw her who was in my dream, you know? And it felt like a visitation.
Just out of interest, how many people believe in life after death? If you do, type a Y for yes. If you don't, N for no. I'm just interested. And if you want catch up, play this as well, just because I'll definitely look back over the comments. I'm just interested. I think like it's a common thing that most people do believe in life after death. But like, I know my dad doesn't, for example. My dad literally believes that, you know, you're deleted off the face of the planet and that's the end. There's no start or end. Like you're just gone.
Do you think he believes that right to his core?
I think people like that, like my dad, who have that belief system, very materialistic belief system. Like everything is what you see and what you hear, and there is nothing that you cannot see or cannot hear. And so anything beyond the senses is just you don't want to think about that. Like that's just doesn't exist. That's fantasy. So the only things that are real is what you can see and what is solid and you can touch it. And so for him, if you're dead, then therefore you're no longer real and solid. So my dad's quite scared to die for that reason.
Yeah.
Now you then could say, well, hang on a minute. Then is people just it's purely for comfort reasons you believe in life after death? Because obviously it's more comfortable to believe that there is. But I just think it's a natural intuition that everyone knows there is, unless you deny that intuition or you're not connected to it. And my dad is the least connected to intuition you can have, I think, on the planet. Like my opinion of that anyway. He might say different and he's not here to say it the other way, but he might say different. So he believes that you just die and that's it. And You're worm food, and that's the end of that. There is no more to it. So he's quite scared to die for obvious reasons, because he believes he's about to be deleted. My dad's in the 70s, mid late 70s. So I wonder if most people who believe that all of a sudden change their mind when it comes close. When they feel it's close, all of a sudden they believe.
You see that a lot, don't you? Where they start, like, they go religious and things like that.
Like I have. So for me, I'm 99.9999999% sure that there's life after death. If you want to know the facts, if we're going to go down there, I believe that this is a simulation, but that doesn't mean that I believe that we're not alive. I think people get misunderstood about simulations. They think about purely of it like a computer, and computers are artificial and all that kind of thing. But I believe that this is a simulation. So I don't believe we're alive or dead. I think we're consciousness, and we're experiencing what we're experiencing here for whatever our reasons were when we came here. I think we chose to come here. I know there are some people who believe this is like some kind of soul prison planet where you are sort of tricked into being here, and then your energy is being harvested by these negative entities. I know some people believe that, and that you're in some kind of cycle of reincarnation, and you're tricked into reincarnation, but really you need to escape. And the escape is when you die, not to come back, to refuse to come back. And other people believe that this is that it's all consensual, that there are all kinds of different simulations that you can take part in, and that each consciousness is experiencing all these different simulations that you choose to take part in. And whilst for us 75 years is 75 years, time only exists when you're in the world. When you're out of the world, there is no time. And so for them, it's like a momentary thing, like, oh, I'll choose to go and experience the Earth simulator. I really love to enjoy a bit of suffering or whatever. So they go down, they're born, they do all the suffering, and then they disappear again. It feels like 75 years or whatever to us, however long you live for. But for them, it was a moment because they don't have time. Like, there's all kinds of different thoughts about it. I much more believe something around that than I do we're just deleted and that's the end.
Do you remember when Hunter said to me that he chose us? He just randomly said it. That was not that long ago, was it? Like,
no,
I want to say about 9 months ago, maybe a year ago. Something about, I said to God. He just randomly said it on the way to school. But more than that, do you remember when we drove past that door and he said, when I was here before, I used to live there and there was a fire?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
That was weird.
That was
That's
really
a very strange
weird.
thing. Well, and that was years ago. So he was, what, 3?
He was like 3, and he was not always, like, it was out of the blue, wasn't it? Like, his behavior.
Anything to do with it.
No, and it wasn't like he wasn't really like that in the car. Like, we had struggles with car with him, didn't we? Like, initially, it was so weird. Yeah, he said something about, I can remember when I used to live in that house there, and it had a green door, and then it caught on fire when I was here before. Me and Dan were just like,
okay.
We tried to ask him questions, but we couldn't get to
he didn't want. He couldn't elaborate any further. It's like he was, when you're just looking out the window and you're sort of like staring into the middle distance.
Yeah, and I don't know that he even knew he said it, if you know what I mean. It was
kind of, it just came out.
Yeah.
So, if any of you have seen ghosts or anything, then let us know. If any of you also think that that there's life after death, like, what is your experiences or thoughts on that, then feel free to share. But for me, I'm definitely down on the whole simulation side of things, and that is a consciousness simulator, and that all consciousness is one consciousness, so that effectively there is no separation between any people, but that not only between any people, but I think everything that we call matter is consciousness to a higher or lesser degree. So it's kind of like how a dimmer switch works. Some things like a rock or a table would have extremely low consciousness, but we're all made out of the same thing, right? We're all made out of the same Lego bricks. So everything has a level of consciousness, and you can go up the different levels: plant, animal, human, but that we all have a level of consciousness, and that separation is only temporary and illusionary. That's what I believe, anyway. Kathy, absolutely, I do and have. Oh, she's seen ghosts.
Have you? I know you don't allow it, but like, have you ever seen anything?
Seen, no. Heard, yes.
Oh God, heard. I mean, it's like constant.
I've heard a
isn't it?
lot of things over the
I'm surprised
years.
you've not heard anything
I've
tonight.
seen movements. I've not seen. Have I seen a full ghost apparition? No. Have I seen like bits and bobs of a ghost? No. But I've seen movement, and I've seen shadow, and I've heard a lot of sounds that are unexplainable.
And you've had a train whistle blown in your ear.
I've had a train whistle blown in my ear while I was asleep, and I just woke up. I went from I am in deep sleep to I am bolt upright and 100% awake. My heart pounding 200 beats a minute because my train whistle. When I was a train dispatcher, I had a train whistle hanging up, and it blew as loud as you can blow it in my ear hole. That was in the flat.
Emma said you sensed Morgan when you used to put Hunter to bed, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. So when I used to put Hunter to, well, I still put him to bed, but when I used to put Hunter to bed, this is going back a few years ago. So Hunter's bare father, as we told you, passed away. And when I used to put him to bed initially, I used to feel, and I can't explain it other than say it's a feeling that his bare father was there and what it felt like was trying to experience what I was experiencing as in putting Hunter to bed. You know, because we have our bedtime routine. I can't remember what it was at the time, and it changes over the years. But you know, he has it. We have the bedtime routine. He goes to bed. Sometimes it's reading books. Sometimes it's playing a game. Sometimes it was playing with Lego or with action figures. Sometimes it's just chatting. And I've had feelings of him being there in the room. Sometimes not so. I don't know how to explain it. Not possession, but superimposing, whereby I feel like Morgan is superimposed on me, if you know what I mean. I know that sounds weird. I can't explain it any other way, other than to say that he's trying to feel what I'm doing because I'm obviously Hunter's other father, and he wants to feel those feelings. Is what I think or feel anyway.
So you know Kate, Herbie Kate.
Yeah.
So she had someone put her on like a coat, like put her so a spirit like basically wore her body like a coat. That's what she said it felt like. The spirit just kind of, but not possession, like you said. She didn't describe it as possession. She did, you know, she described it as if like this person put her on like a coat. That's how she described it.
Same as like for me, it feels like superimposed. Like that person is like around me, inhabiting me at the same time as me, but not taking over.
No,
just
same
there.
Yeah.
So that they can see through my eyes and feel what I'm feeling. It felt like that, and that would make sense. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to know what to make of it because I don't like it, all that stuff. So I shut it off, and I know you can turn it off, and I know you can turn it on again, and I don't want to turn it on. But when I was younger, it used to scare me. So I said out loud, I don't want to experience this. I do not consent to experiencing this. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to see anything, and I don't want to hear anything. That's what he said out loud. And when I said that, from that moment, I've not seen anything or heard anything until more recent times when I've heard things in this house that we moved to. But that's only because I think I'm much more open spiritually anyway. So I think it's kind of like I've watered down my statement, if you like.
Well, and you've had to live with me.
And I've had to live with you, who's basically a witch.
Yeah. Do you remember in the old flat when I told you to stop touching my feet, and then I woke up with the 2 bruises?
Yeah.
2 thumbprint bruises, wasn't it, on my feet?
And it wasn't me. Just
no.
to make that clear.
No. I'm surprised that you're still scared, because I'm surprised that you don't want to explore that so that you can get some insight. I do understand though, because in our old flat, I saw the air go 3D. That's the best way I can describe it. You know, like there's the Terminator where he looks like water or something, or silver. I don't know.
You look like molten metal, yeah.
No, I don't think.
No, that's what the Terminator looked like.
Yeah,
the one you saw looked like basically like
the air was 3D. Like that's the best way I can describe it, and it was coming towards me. And then I've had many a person over me in bed. Many a face, many a face.
There has been people, just on a side note, that have reported sexual assault by ghosts. Just saying. I can't understand that. But
why can't? Was that you?
What?
That knocking?
Yeah, that was me. Don't worry. That was my. I did this.
Um,
But there's people have reported that. Now I can't understand it from the ghost's point of view. Sure, you have to be physical to appreciate that.
Well, no, if you're gonna like inhabit someone, I don't know.
No, there wasn't inhabit. No, as in like
They touch them.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean that person touched my feet that time. That was a woman with curly brown hair. Tried to get my attention for the longest time. Loads and loads and loads of curly brown hair. In her 30s, I'd say.
Okay. I'd just like to make it clear as we're talking about the subject, and that can often attract a situation, that I am still no longer, and I'm still not interested in any experiences. Thank you. So I'll tell you one thing I used to do, right? When I was a teenager, I was very interested in astral projection. If anyone's interested in astral projection or not, or don't know what it is or whatever, astral projection is when you go into
Sorry.
a state of consciousness whereby you your spirit effectively leaves your body, and you can float above your own body, and you're attached by a silver cord. Okay. If you don't I'm not going to explain it now because it's late in the podcast, but just you can look it up yourself. Astral projection. And I used to try it when I was a teenager, and I succeeded on a couple of occasions, but I was scared by it, and then that put me off it, and I've never seriously tried since. I've a few times done meditation and whatever, and tried in a way to sort of feel it a bit, if you know what I mean, but not ever do it properly. I don't know. So I know this guy who talks about spirituality stuff, and he is all into astral projection, and he was talking about how people think they see demons and all kinds of stuff, and he was saying how that is actually not real demons or anything real. It is your own projections, your own fear being projected. And when you are in that world, when you go into that vibration of spirit, you see forms as real. And so when you then astral project, sometimes you can see things which you believe are real things, but they're not real things. They are your own mental projections, and your own fears being manifest.
That's like It, isn't it? By Stephen King. That's the.
I don't know it well enough to say that.
Yeah. They're not actually real monsters. It's the interpretation that I think my dad. I'm not sure now. Now I'm doubting what I've said, but I'm pretty sure that like the film doesn't represent the book very well, or yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
one thing I am going to do, right? There is a form of astral projection, extreme astral projection, which the CIA used to use, called the Gateway Project. And I'm going to get into that. I've downloaded all the Gateway tapes, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be on Mars.
Don't die.
Well, my spirit is. I've always wanted to go to Mars, but not physically because it's quite far. I don't think the journey would be nice.
I can't think of anywhere.
I didn't even like going to
go.
Mauritius. Sorry.
What? I can't think of anywhere worse to go.
What, then Mars?
Well, I can think of places worse to go, but I've got zero interest in going to Mars.
Uranus. Sorry. It was there. It was low hanging fruit. There.
Dad joke.
Anyway, we're getting towards the end of this podcast because we've talked about all the things, haven't we?
Well, I mean, I feel like there's so much more that we could say.
It's only really scratching the surface, isn't it?
Yeah.
We will do a part 2, I suppose, at some point on this.
Well, maybe with more, like, this was like just a free-for-all, wasn't it?
Yes.
As it, like, me and you didn't really make notes.
Well, no, because we just want to talk about it naturally. Like, there's no script.
No.
On this, you just want to talk about it naturally as we would have a conversation.
But maybe the next one's slightly more structured, because I think it would be helpful for people to understand the 7 stages. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. What I will say is for those that are going through grief, yeah, just be kind to yourself. Like, it is not linear. It is not a one size fits all. It is not, I think that we think that by this point this person's going to feel better. By this point, they're going to feel better.
There's timescales.
Yeah.
I mean, to take that to an extreme, though, I'm going to use an animal here, right? That is somewhat comedic, right? Because I don't want anyone to attach onto an animal that they may have had, right?
You can
So
use a mule.
no, I'm going to use the squirrel for this, right? Because
Stephen.
very few people have pet squirrels, right? But if I said a cat or a dog, you'd be, oh yeah, I remember my cat or dog, and then you associate feeling. And I want you to see it from outside and not from your own perspective, right? If you was to grieve 20 years because of the death of your squirrel, that would be a long time to grieve a squirrel, wouldn't it? So I'm not saying that. So whilst there is no limit on grief, like you can grieve as long as whatever you need to do, right? If it got to the point of you've been grieving 20 years for the death of a squirrel, there might be something else wrong.
Well, yeah, I think there's a difference between grief.
Just use an extreme example.
And like missing somebody, and yeah, like but yeah, I mean, people say you lose friends and stuff, and like my brain couldn't compute that, but I have. I really have lost a fair amount of people that have been angry with me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't heal quick enough, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah, that is a thing. Actually, people sort of give you like, oh, you've got 6 months, and then if you're not back to normal by then. I mean, grief changes you, right? I don't think you're the same person as you was before your mum died. I think you've changed.
Oh yeah, I'm not the same person.
I'm not saying better or worse or making a judgment. I'm just saying you are different because you've had that experience. You can't not be changed by such a big experience.
No, yeah, definitely not the same person. I think I'm better for it.
Well, absolutely, but
like eventually, but it's been bloody hard.
Absolutely. I mean, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, kind of thing. Samantha says you don't ever get over losing someone.
So you know.
Yeah, time is a great healer, but definitely isn't well for me. Anyone I lost.
Anyway.
Oh, she lost her daughter 13 years ago, 5 months, still struggles. Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes there's people that have had miscarriages and still more than that. They still grieve a miscarriage, and I know we had a miscarriage. There's a few miscarriages.
There's that saying that again made me angry when Mum first died, but actually is what I keep with me, and that is grief is just love with nowhere to go. And that is what it feels like. And I don't know if Samantha agrees, but like you have all that love for your daughter that you can't express because you can't hold her, you can't talk to her, you can't, and like it's so. But initially that really, like, that phrase like really upset me, but I actually feel like there's something in it, really.
Yeah. I guess that's the reason for like the shrine and all that kind of thing. So it has got somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Like that's why it's important for the expression, isn't it?
And that's why. So I think when you said, if you're grieving Squirrel the Stephen, Squirrel the Stephen
the Squirrel. I didn't name him, but you called him Stephen.
After I've personalized him, after 20 years, then there's something wrong. I think it.
Would it be more accurate to say if you haven't found a way to grieve Steve the Squirrel after 20 years, there's something wrong?
Yeah.
Because if you're still at that point of that immediate grief after 20 years, that's an extreme example, but we're doing it to make it clear. It's not muddied waters there. It's very clear. 20 years is a long time to grieve the squirrel, irrelevant of how close you was to it. So if you haven't found a way, an outlet to grieve that and express that and go from one side of the grief to the other, that doesn't mean that grief is removed because you've gone through this journey of grief, but it means that you've come to an understanding of it whereby you can live with it and you found a way to live with it.
Yeah. So there was another analogy where I got to get it right now, where it was like balls in a jar, and it's not that the ball shrinks. Yeah, that's it. So like, so my grief from my mum, right, is this big, right? But it's not that this shrinks, and so then I can get it away so that I can then cope with it. It's that I expand.
You're still growing as a human being.
Yeah.
But the grief stays the same size.
Yes. Yeah.
So that you get bigger as compared to the grief.
Yes. And I think that's what people misunderstand about grief.
And that's the problem why you can get stuck with grief, is that you stop growing because you don't ever move away from the grief or grow from the grief. It consumes you, so you're never getting bigger compared to the grief, so you struggle with it for longer.
Yeah, and I think that's a misunderstanding, where people say time's a great healer and that grief eases. The grief never gets smaller. It's exactly as it was. It's exactly as it was the day my mum died. It's exactly the same. It's the same pain. But I've learned how to talk about it. I've learned how to cry about it. I've learned to look for positives around it.
And do you feel like you've accepted that it's a fact that has happened? Have you
Yeah.
accepted it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a bit hard because she hasn't turned up for, last couple of Christmases. And
No, or she'd be in
Yeah.
massive trouble because she hasn't got you any gifts for a
yeah,
while.
yeah. So, yeah, she hasn't been doing the washing. So she's
No.
definitely gone.
And she's not been taking Hunter down the park like she used to.
No. Asshole.
Yeah. So, yes, I think that's a decent place to end it, because I think that's quite an important thing to say. If you guys agree, if you think, or if you guys got an opinion on that, by all means share. And if you're on catch up, feel free to share. Samantha says, that's why I think I struggle more, because I cannot bring myself to talk about it even now. Well, you are talking about it even now because you've told us, so you are talking about it right now.
Yeah, well done, love.
And even if you're typing it out, you're still going, you're thinking the thoughts about it, and then you're writing it down. It's like making it manifest in a way, because it's become physical. It's not just in your brain, it's physical. So I think you are talking about it. And if you can only talk about it through writing about it, then maybe that is a good way for you. Kizzy said earlier in the podcast about journaling. It's not for everyone, but it might be for you. Maybe writing a book, writing a journal to her, if that might help, as if you were talking to her. For some people that might help. It doesn't have to be shared with anyone. It might not even be something you ever read. It might be something you set fire to when it's full and start again or whatever. It doesn't have to be shared with anyone. It can be your own private thing for you to express in a healthy way what you want to say.
And I think, circling back to what Kathy said right at the beginning, which is a good place to end, my empathy's shooting off now, is that oh no, I forgot my point. Journaling and writing about it. Oh no, what was I going to say? So what Kathy said at the beginning. Oh, that's it. Is that I don't know how Samantha feels, but a lot of people won't do the journaling, won't write the letters, because that's gonna hurt.
Absolutely.
That's gonna, and that's my empathy's firing off, because I'm imagining Samantha talking to her daughter and all the things that all that love and all the things she's got to say to her daughter. And, my heart is hurting for her. And so I feel like people avoid that. And
it's a natural thing to avoid it. Obviously, no one wants to go through that.
But on the other side of it, is good stuff. Like, that sounds wrong, but you will stop crying. It won't lead you to, well, I hope it wouldn't lead you to absolute despair. Do you know what I mean? Like, my experience and, experiences with others is that it's a release. It's a form of a release. And each time is just another little piece of the jigsaw, so to speak.
You might not want to do it, on a day where you're busy doing something else. But if you can find a day, maybe it's a Sunday, if you can find a day that you can feel right, you know what? There's no one around. I've got this afternoon. I've got this morning. Whatever. I'm going to write this journal, and it's going to hurt, and it's going to upset me, and I'm going to go through it. But there's going to be some good come from it, because I feel like this might express some of the feeling, and having it out rather than in is going to help me in the longer term, in the medium and longer term. Then the quicker you're able to do that, the better.
Because it's hurting anyway. You're never fooling yourself.
There's no avoidance of that pain, is there? There's no avoidance of it.
Well,
it's never going to not hurt you.
And if you don't do it, it comes out physically.
So you're going to make yourself ill for sure.
Yeah, I don't know all of Samantha's health background. But what I can say is if you don't find a way to express it, then your body, you can't trick your body. There's a great book called Your Body Keeps the Score. And your body, you cannot fool your body that sadness and that pain is inside of you. So it will come out in physical pain, or it will come out. When I first was going through my nervous breakdown, I used to get boils, didn't I? Huge boils. And I used to get blood infections, and they couldn't really understand it. There was like no reason for it. And then I went and saw somebody who said to me, those boils are the trauma, the pain. Like, that's your body physically expelling it or trying to. And oh my God, they were right. I've never had a boil since.
And it's quite possible you've got fibro now. And they say a lot of fibro, the doctors don't really, some doctors, and I don't even think generally the medical profession in general counts it as a real thing. It obviously is a real thing because people are experiencing it. So what is it? And I think it's because it's not a physical thing that they count it, but it's a mental thing. It's a mental trauma or effect that is you're keeping within your body, and so it's harming your body. And obviously from a doctor's perspective, if they can't medicate it or they can't find a physical reason, then it doesn't exist as far as they're concerned, because they're very scientific left brain people. But I think it comes down to some kind of traumas, and that can be just losing someone. It can be therefore grief trauma, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, like I've had loads of pain, haven't I? Like,
you've had loads of physical pain since your mum and dad died.
Yeah, and that's why I went for healing first of all, because I couldn't hardly walk. The physical pain that I had in my body, and I knew it was grief. I knew it, and now I'm left with, most days I feel fine, but like tomorrow I might not be any good.
Yeah.
Like, and I might get up and be in a lot of pain, and I might. It's just, yeah.
Just think of it as negative energy, right? That is going circulating around your body. And imagine if you could just, I don't know, like cut your finger and it would all just pour out, right? Then you'd be better, right? Now you can't ever pour grief out, but if you don't express some of the grief, as in the stuff that because you're churning over it in your mind energy is creating loads of negative energy around it, right? If you don't ever get rid of some of that, that's just going to build up in your body, and it doesn't go anywhere, and it makes you ill. And so I think that it can be things like journaling or talking to people, or do you know what? So for some, and this is more men than women, but some men all of a sudden become fitness fanatics because that's their way of being physical, boxing, running.
When they lose a child or
a wife, that's a way of them getting that energy out. They've got this energy that is very negative energy, and they literally burn it.
Yeah,
they literally burn it.
I'm better on my feet, aren't I? And I'm not physical, but like it's so I started this podcast and I went all woozy. I didn't tell you,
right?
But the anxiety set in, and I thought I'm gonna have to tell you I'm gonna have to get up in a minute, because that's the only way I know how to cope with it is to get on my feet. Which first of all, because so mine presents in very dizzy, like feeling like I'm going, it's the best way I can describe it, like kind of fainting, I guess, but not quite. Chest pains. And so I used to think that walking, like I can't walk because, I'm really dizzy and I've got chest pains, but actually it's the best thing for me.
I wonder if it creates a kind of flow around your body rather than things feeling like, tight and stuck. Rather than walking creates a flow around your body and it helps. Jackie Lee says, I think that's a very good explanation. There are days with my parents who died 2 weeks of each other where the grief still hits me like it was yesterday, but you learn to deal with it differently. Someone says, thank you. I am always exhausted all the time, and I've had so many tests done and everything comes back clear. My body just aches. Yeah, I mean, I would say purely from that statement, that is a grief pain.
Yeah. And if you do find a way to express it, love, if you do find a way to talk about your daughter, I think you might suddenly experience less pain in a certain area, or you might experience less pain in general, or the pain might go.
I mean, it's different personality types require different ways of doing this. So, No, I said about the journaling. Another thing, some people go to like group counselling where there's other people who have had similar things as you, and just other people being in the same boat as you, and everyone having sort of been able to have joint experiences that can help people get it out of themselves because they feel like everyone around me's had the same thing happen to them. So I can talk about it freely with these people, and there's obviously no judgment, and there's no fear of judgment, and no fear of what I say here because everyone's had the same experience.
Rebecca Gaskell, one of my friends, she lost her daughter Grace. Grace was 13 years old. And Rebecca is super open. The other day, she actually posted pictures of Grace in her casket, in her coffin. And I know that, there were some groups that she was in that Emma then went in for child loss, and I know initially when everything happened for me, those places would have made me angry. Like,
yes,
I don't want other people's pain because it's all about me.
Yeah.
So it is different strokes. I mean, I could now, but it would be more from a sense of helping others, I think. But yeah, different strokes, different folks. It's finding your thing, isn't it?
Do you know what? I think in my sort of 20s and 30s, the idea of a group counselling session would have horrified me. However, nowadays, I think actually that might be a benefit if something like that happened. God forbid if anything happened to Hunter or you or whatever. I don't know. I think maybe that would help. I don't know.
I think so, because I think that you listening to others, like, that's a good way for your brain to process stuff. I think it'd be dangerous you left on your own to do your own processing.
Well, I obviously use you for a lot of that kind of thing. If I want to bounce things around.
We use each other.
Yeah, we bounce things around with each other. So
we basically have to die together.
If it was you, then I wouldn't have that outlet, and then that might be different. I might be, I don't know. You're definitely empathetic. Oh God, yeah.
It's off the scale.
She's off the scale empathetic. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Level of empathy.
Yeah, it's something I'm working
on all the psychological testing that we've ever done on some of the things we're going to do in later podcasts. She's always off the charts empathetically. How she's alive, how she hasn't died on someone else's behalf purely out of grief for someone else, I have no idea.
I used to cry when I was a child because of. Sorry, I just heard the word noise. Because of all the things that were happening in the world. I can't watch the news, and I haven't been able to since I was a child because I can't bear the pain of the world. Like, I can't, and I have to shut myself off from like adoption stuff as well because I know that Hunter's my priority, but I can't bear. I mean, I felt so upset watching Home Alone earlier with Hunter.
Yeah, she cried at Home Alone.
Well, no, when he walked past the family, and then I just thought there are children without families.
There are.
Yeah, and I just can't cope with it, so I have to block it out. So otherwise, I can't survive.
Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but it's gone extremely cold in here. My arms are freezing.
Yeah, it has gone cold.
Like, it was warm in here. I had a jacket on. I took it off, and now it's freezing.
My
there's
feet
a draft.
Like blocks of ice.
It's bitter.
We should go, love. Look at the time.
Yeah. Anyway,
I've got to do the school run in a minute.
I hope this has helped someone, and I hope if you guys know anyone who's suffering with grief, this might help. Then share it with them. I think we'll come back to this and go to the next level of talking about it at a later date. Probably not pre-Christmas though. We'll probably enjoy Christmas, get that out of the way, and look forward to it in the old most depressing month, maybe in January.
What are we going to talk about next week then?
I don't know we've got a few saved up, haven't we, ready to go? We could use one of them.
I don't know. You're the boss. I just turn up.
I'm not going to promise anything. We're not going to be doing a podcast. Is it Christmas week? Is that a Sunday or something? We're not going to do it that or New Year's.
Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve.
We're going to miss those 2 weeks.
We're not going to do. Is that not going to be our New Year's Eve party?
New Year's Eve party. Let's talk about grief part 2. Let's talk about programming.
Maybe we'll just come on here and get drunk.
Oh yeah. Would you like to see a rat ass stream where everyone just come on here and everyone's got a drink, and then we just say ridiculous things because we're half drunk? We can't because we're responsible parents, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless someone's going to look after
the
child.
And I cannot parent with a hangover.
No. Oh, no.
God, imagine that.
Oh, no.
No, so I'll drink and then you say...
To be fair, because you're the designated driver, I do get to drink a lot of the time when you can't. So, yeah.
Yeah, Vic's on the bottom of my feet. Oh, yeah. Do you know, I'm actually doing an experiment, okay? So Dan will tell you I'm no good being uncomfortable
She's
in
not
any
allowed to
way,
be
shape, or
uncomfortable.
form. So, like, if I fly on a plane, I have to have 27 accessories that make flying on a
She
plane
takes a
more
suitcase full
comfortable.
of cushions and various soft furnishings.
Footstools and belt extenders.
She set up a little lounge in her seat.
It sounds an exaggeration, but I am
It's
bad
really
for
not.
it.
It's really not an exaggeration. She
So-
sets up a lounge in her seat.
So when I have a cold, like I just throw everything at it because I can't bear not breathing. Like I can't bear any of it. And I'm going with nothing. The only thing I'm doing is having a whiff of Bulbasaur because it's natural.
You're going to allow your own immune system to sort of develop immunity to
Well,
whatever it is
I've
you've
got a theory that every time I use like the nose unblocker stuff, which is chemical. I mean, Vic's not so bad; it's more natural, isn't it? But I'll probably use Temple Balm, which is purely natural,
Right.
from Herbs on the Hill, actually on the bottom of my feet. But anyway, I got a feeling when I put that cold and flu stuff in my body that it makes it last longer.
Well, I think suppressing symptoms that are supposed to be there because when you're really supposed to have symptoms of being ill and not being allowed to have a snot and not being allowed to have a fever and all that kind of thing. I think that's bad. I think you're supposed to have a fever and you're supposed to have snot.
Well,
when you're
yeah, and so I've got
just allowing that to be.
I've got suspicion that
maybe
it's
better.
making me.
Well, that's what I do. I never take anything.
Yeah. So this is the first time.
Other than lemons and honey, as in actual lemons and actual honey.
And do you know why? Because the last time I was poorly, I gargled salt water, took a spoon of honey and something else straight away because I'm like, I can't do this.
Mm.
And and then I was fine.
Mm.
So, but but I don't feel too bad. But I don't know. Do I not feel too bad because this is mild, or do I not feel too bad because I've not done my usual throw everything at it?
Because you haven't thrown everything at it.
Is that what you reckon?
You're not filled your body full of chemicals.
Anyway, total off subject. Your fault.
Right. Okay. Thanks, everyone. So we'll be back next Sunday, 9 o'clock. And we don't know what it's going to be on, but we'll put it out in a week. And we have uploaded all the things to YouTube, so do check it out. And I hopefully this week will upload everything to Rumble if you're on Rumble, and I'll put the Rumble out there. That is an alternative to YouTube, which in some people's opinion is superior to YouTube.
Thank you.
Okay. Goodbye.
Night, guys. Have a wonderful week.
Bye-bye.